We often think that an empath is someone who uses lots of empathy. Today, we learn that they might actually use more sympathy and hence be better called sympaths. We'll also learn what their big sacrifice is. I'm Professor Ritual. Welcome to the Retrospective. Empathy is a positive force that truly makes us human. It's the capacity by which we can feel other people's feelings. Empathy builds bridges between people and even between nations. Without empathy, we couldn't even understand other people. David Myers writes, "If you have empathy, you identify with others and imagine what it must be like to walk in their shoes. You rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep." Empathy is a necessary skill in teamwork. For this reason, I try to teach all my teams either active listening or Otto Scharmer's 4 levels of listening. An empath would be someone radiating excess empathy and can be overwhelmed by emotions. They have long antennas and are often self-sacrificing. There are 3 kinds of empaths. Physical empaths feel other people's symptoms in their body. Emotional empaths feel other people's emotions as their own. And intuitive empaths have an epic list of powers. Let's first talk about the intuitives. Native cultures around the globe have taken intuitive skills as normal. For example, Native American Indians had deep connection with animals and the earth, and their chiefs have spoken emotionally about how nuclear energy hurts the planet. Science fiction glorifies intuitive empaths, and they often make great heroes. Their superpowers include ability to feel and manipulate other people's emotions, whereas real-life empaths can only feel. Both seem to more or less suffer from their sensitivity. Even some empaths themselves explain their skills to lay people through sci-fi references. For example, that normal people are like Jedi Padawans who don't yet understand the Force, and that empaths themselves are like Jedi Knights who do understand the Force. Now, I would like to ask how a Jedi Master would see a Jedi Knight or an empath. What advice would they give? Perhaps the Master would recognize the Knight's strong identification and guide them softly towards a more balanced and objective view of themselves. I actually do believe that some people are extremely sensitive, but I do not believe that all empaths are who they say they are. I suspect some are empaths just because they want to be. To better understand where empaths' suffering stems from, let's put on our metaphysical hat. No, not that hat. Not that either. That one. Got it. Let's assume that the total experience of reality consists of both material and immaterial realms, and that we human beings are conduits between these 2 realms. This human hamburger model is a neutral way to approach spirituality. We are not invoking any spiritual entities, but yet we are accepting the metaphysical as a first-class citizen. Within this context, then, an empath would receive more stuff from upstairs than they can handle. Their spiritual door is wide open, but their grounding is poor. A balanced individual would not be overwhelmed because they would be in control of their connections in both directions. A materialist would be incredibly well rooted to earth, but happily ignorant of the immaterial. Looking at this simplistic model, I'd like to ask empaths out there whether they would be able and willing to ground themselves better and maybe close the spiritual door just a bit. Please leave a comment. Would be interesting to hear your thoughts and experiences. Let's then talk about the physical and emotional empaths. Dr. Orloff, a self-proclaimed empath, writes, "As an empath, We sense other people's emotions, energy, and physical symptoms in our bodies without the usual filters that most people have. There is no membrane that separates us from the world. Now, my running hypothesis is that the missing membrane is actually missing connection to one's core self. Our soul's basic capabilities extend from antipathy to sympathy. Antipathy is the repulsive and sympathy is the attractive force. Our commitment to any given situation fluctuates between indifference and empathy. In this model, a narcissist would reside here and the empath here. Narc's place in the lower left quadrant is clear, but why isn't an empath more nearer to empathy? In my opinion, most empaths revolve between two hotspots: over sympathy towards the external world and over indifference towards their inner experience. They are indifferent to their own needs and they are over caring or over sympathetic to others. Therefore, a better name for empath would be a sympath. For comparison, a balanced soul space with faculties fully at disposal shows a great freedom to navigate across the whole board. A narc and an empath sit at the opposite ends of the continuum. Both sides lack real empathy or the middle way. A balanced personhood would represent the neutral aptitude and would be able to move between the axes as necessary. Because an empath's attack surface is so huge, they make perfect targets to narcissists, and they often end up living together. Eventually, empath becomes narc's enabler and sacrifices their freedom, values, and potentially even their children. It's somewhat pointless, however, to blame the empath for the situations, since they are being manipulated. If we look at hospitals and old people's homes today, we can observe an interesting phenomenon that possibly relates to empathy. The occupation of a nurse has serious dents in its image. Declining morale, declining customer service, declining quality of care, and even blatant malpractices have become the norm in this occupation across the globe. I suspect that today people are becoming nurses for all the wrong reasons. They think they are empathic when they in actuality are not. Being an empath is a tough road filled with sacrifices. With great powers come great responsibility, especially towards one's own values. It can be very well that ultimately being an empath is a choice.